93% of homebuyers say they regret purchasing. But what if I told you that their reasons weren't the crazy high prices? It was all because of one simple truth. Some houses you should never buy. So how do you know which ones to stay away from? In this video, I'll show you the 7 red flags you need to watch out for to avoid a ton of problems, show you a few workarounds in case the house is your only option, and give you the tools to make sure that you never land yourself with a bad deal. So how do so many people end up with regret after they purchase a house? It's actually a trap that's easy to fall into. Have you ever been so hungry that you could eat anything? When you're starving, you just want something to eat as fast as possible. So you grab a bag of chips from the pantry and scarf down the whole thing. But then, half an hour later, your stomach lets you know that that was a horrible idea and you instantly regret it. For a lot of homebuyers, they're so eager to get out of their cramped apartment or maybe a neighborhood that they don't like that they'll convince themselves that anything is a good option, so they pounce on the first home that fits their budget. But that home is just satisfying their craving, and once they're full, the realization hits. So how do you spot the homes that are junk food? Well, first, you have to go looking for the red flags. Take the first house, for example. It has 4 of them, and if you miss these, it's not just gonna cost you a bunch of money, but it's also pretty bad for your health. The first 2 are easy to find at the home inspection. Red flag number 1 is old wiring, which is a fire hazard. Number 2 is old plumbing, which can leak, but it's also dangerous because some of the pipes were made with toxins like lead. But the 2 other red flags aren't easy to spot, and sometimes you may not even find them until it's too late. Most homeowners will move in and slap a coat of paint on the walls to freshen things up. But on older houses, this is a dangerous mistake. Homes built before 1978 usually have lead-based paint lurking somewhere. So before you start redecorating, or even better, before you buy, you should have the paint tested for lead. And if they find it, you'll have to get the lead out. Removing lead-based paint will run you anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000, so it's a really big cost. And if your home has lead paint, there's a pretty good chance that it has another problem lurking inside: asbestos. Can't believe those guys didn't blow up. This is another one the inspector might catch because it was often used to insulate the attic. But if it was put in the walls or used for the plumbing, they may not find it. Since you can't open up the walls to look for asbestos, you should never buy a house built before 1980. Now, there are a few exceptions to this. Tons of homes have been renovated, but make sure that you get documentation from the sellers that they took everything down to the studs, had all the hazardous materials removed, replaced the entire electrical and plumbing systems, and basically turned it into a brand new house. A nice benefit of having those things replaced is that many insurance companies will give you a discount on your premium. But lately, insurance has been much more of a roadblock for home buyers. This is another red flag to watch out for, and it has nothing to do with the home and everything to do with where it's built. You'll hear a lot of people telling you to never buy in a flood zone, and that certainly wouldn't be my first choice, but I also wouldn't rule it out because of that. Flood insurance is relatively easy to get, and even though it will cost you another $2,000 to $4,000 each year on top of your regular home insurance, you at least get to know that your home's covered against flood damage. But I've been seeing a lot of insurance companies refusing to give policies on houses that have the opposite problem. Someday, I'd like to own a second home somewhere in the high country of northern Arizona to escape the heat in the summer of Phoenix. Last summer, my family took a trip up to a friend's place in Show Low, and it was great to relax and listen to the wind blow through the pine trees. What wasn't so relaxing was the letter our friend received a few weeks later telling him that his home policy wouldn't be renewed due to the high wildfire risk. And he's not alone. Thousands of property owners around the country are being dropped in areas that are in wildfire zones. And many of them can't even find a policy through a regular carrier. So what do you do if you are moving to one of these areas? Well, you pretty much have 2 options if all the major companies have told you no. First, you can check with your state to see if they offer any kind of insurance. There are 30 of them who offer coverage through a FAIR plan, which is a partnership between the state and a private insurance company to provide coverage to those in high-risk areas. The downside, of course, is that these policies are really expensive and the coverage is pretty minimal. The second option is to see if you can find a policy through a carrier who specializes in high-risk products. These are called surplus lines carriers, and the policies they sell are going to hit your wallet hard. They also aren't regulated by the insurance departments, so you'll really want to do your homework on these guys before you give them your money. I always recommend having a chat with your insurance agent before you sign a contract to buy a home, because you'll be surprised at some of the areas that are considered high wildfire risk. Even here in the Phoenix metro, there are a lot of places that get tagged as being high risk for wildfire, and if it's going to be difficult to get the property insured, I wouldn't buy it. Another house to avoid also has fire danger, but the red flag here is that if your house catches on fire, nobody will be coming to put it out. Now you might be thinking that this house is located way out in the boonies and too far away from a fire station, but there are actually a lot of these properties right in the middle of town. So why would the fire department let a place burn? Well, it's because to the firefighters, that place is technically on an island. In Arizona, you'll find a lot of areas located in what is called a county island. Other parts of the country have different names for it, but these are unincorporated areas within a county. And being in a location like this means that you won't have any of the municipal services. So you'll be on your own to get your own water, septic, trash collection, and yes, even fire protection. Now there are some of these communities in unincorporated areas that have organized themselves into an HOA to help people find these services, pay the subscription fees for them, and they'll get fire protection from the nearest volunteer fire department, and usually will get water from a shared well or a private water company. But you still could have problems even if all the fees are paid. One example that got a lot of publicity here was the water dispute between the city of Scottsdale and the nearby community of Rio Verde, which is a county island. For decades, Scottsdale had hauled water over to the customers in Rio Verde, but in 2021, Scottsdale sent a warning to Rio Verde, letting the people know that the water supply could be cut off. Scottsdale was dealing with years of drought, and part of the city's management plan is to limit the water supply to only residents within Scottsdale. 2 years later, that's exactly what happened, and for 8 long months, the people in Rio Verde were stuck in the middle of the Sonoran Desert without any water. The state eventually stepped in and restored the service in August of 2023, and Rio Verde is working to establish its own water supply for those who don't have a well. But after years of drought in the West, it seems pretty risky to buy a home in an area without a reliable water supply. I know there are lots of people out there who don't want any oversight from a city or even an HOA, but if it was me, I would not buy a home in an unincorporated area. Now this next red flag is really tricky because the house is going to look amazing on the surface. In fact, there's probably hundreds of other people wanting to purchase it. But if you're not careful, you'll end up like me the last time I bought sunglasses in Mexico. So when I was about to graduate from college, my parents took me on a trip to Cancun to celebrate. And while I was boogie boarding, my sunglasses flew off my head and broke. I was pretty upset because for the first time in my life, I'd spent money on a nice set of Ray-Bans instead of the gas station specials that I usually bought. But as luck would have it, a beach vendor was right there, came by and offered me a beautiful pair of Ray-Bans, just like the ones I had broken, and they were only $20. I just figured it must be a screaming deal since we were in Mexico. And at first glance, these things were actually pretty great, but it wasn't long before they started to fall apart, and I learned a hard lesson. If only there'd been some clue that these things weren't authentic. Now, nobody is selling counterfeit houses, but there are a lot of new construction homes that are built about as well as my replacement Ray-Bans. You'd be shocked to see some of the corners that are being cut and how many problems a lot of these things have. And this isn't to say you shouldn't buy a new build home. There are plenty of builders who have an excellent product, but there are some who you should absolutely stay away from. Now, I don't really want to get a cease and desist letter from any of their lawyers, so I'm not going to call them out publicly. But if you scan the QR code in the corner of your screen and schedule a call with me, I'm happy to share what I know. There's also a link in the description below. Okay, so there's one more problem that everyone who's thinking about buying a house is facing. There are tons of opinions out there on whether or not it's a good time to buy a home. And I think just about everybody gets this wrong. And that's why you should watch this video next, because I'm going to share something that could change the way you're looking at your decision.